Dear listeners, welcome to History with Herodotus, where the tapestry of time is woven into tales of wonder and discovery. Today, we embark on a journey through the ravaged streets of a city that has borne witness to the tumultuous tides of history, Berlin. Our odyssey takes us to the Battle of Berlin, a clash of titans that shook the very foundations of the world. As we delve into the origins of this pivotal event, let us first set the stage with a glimpse into the maelstrom that was to come. The seeds of discord were sown in the aftermath of World War I, when the Treaty of Versailles, signed on June 28, 1919, imposed harsh penalties on Germany. The treaty's war guilt clause, which forced Germany to accept responsibility for causing the war, sparked widespread resentment among the German people. As we walk through the streets of Weimar-era Berlin, we can almost hear the murmurs of discontent emanating from the city's cafes and beer halls. The economic crisis that followed, known as the hyperinflation of 1923, left Germany's economy in shambles. The value of the mark plummeted, and the once thriving middle class found itself struggling to make ends meet. It was amidst this chaos that Adolf Hitler, a charismatic and cunning politician, began to rise to prominence. His National Socialist German Workers' Party promised to restore Germany's honor, create jobs, and provide a sense of purpose for the disillusioned masses. As we explore the historical context of Hitler's ascension, we find ourselves in the city of Munich, where the beer hall putsch of 1923 took place. Although the putsch failed, it marked a turning point in Hitler's career, as he began to build a loyal following and refine his message of nationalism and militarism. The policy of appeasement pursued by Britain and France only served to embolden Hitler. The remilitarization of the Rhineland in 1936, the annexation of Austria in 1938, and the occupation of Czechoslovakia all went unchecked, as the Western powers hoped to avoid another devastating war. However, their inaction only whetted Hitler's appetite for conquest. The invasion of Poland on September 1, 1939, marked the beginning of World War II. The Soviet Union, bound by a non-aggression pact with Germany, invaded Poland from the east, and the country was quickly overrun. As the war spread across Europe, Germany's military machine rolled through Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. The Battle of Britain, fought in the summer of 1940, marked a turning point in the war, as the German air campaign against the United Kingdom failed to achieve its objectives. However, it was the Soviet Union that would ultimately prove to be the decisive factor in the defeat of Nazi Germany. The German invasion of Soviet territory, known as Operation Barbarossa, began on June 22, 1941, and would lead to a prolonged and bloody conflict on the Eastern Front. As we pause at the threshold of this pivotal moment, let us reflect on the complex web of events that has brought us to this point. The rise of Nazi Germany, the policy of appeasement, and the outbreak of World War II all contributed to the perfect storm that would soon engulf Berlin. We have witnessed the bravery and sacrifice of soldiers on both sides, and explored the intricate strategies that shaped the outcome of this epic struggle. Now, as we stand at the gates of Berlin, we are about to embark on a journey into the heart of the battle. The Soviet army is closing in, and the fate of the city hangs precariously in the balance. Join me, dear listeners, as we venture into the very crucible of history, where the course of human events was forever altered. Dear listeners, welcome back to History with Herodotus, where we left off at the gates of Berlin, poised on the precipice of one of the most pivotal battles in human history. As we venture into the heart of the conflict, the Soviet army's relentless advance is met with fierce resistance from the German forces. The year is 1945, and the fate of Berlin hangs precariously in the balance. The Soviet Union's strategic plan, codenamed Operation Bagration, aimed to encircle and capture the city of Berlin. The operation began on April 16, 1945, with a massive artillery barrage that shook the very foundations of the city. The Soviet army, led by General Georgy Zhukov, advanced on a broad front, pushing the German forces back towards the city center. As we walk through the streets of Berlin, we can almost hear the sound of gunfire and explosions echoing off the buildings. The German army, although vastly outnumbered, fought valiantly, employing every tactic in their arsenal to slow down the Soviet advance. However, the Soviet Union's superior firepower, combined with their strategic advantage, ultimately proved too much for the German forces. One of the most significant battles fought during this period was the Battle of Seelow Heights, which took place from April 16 to 19, 1945. The battle was a brutal and bloody affair, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. However, the Soviet Army's superior numbers and firepower eventually told, and they emerged victorious. As the Soviet Army closed in on Berlin, the city's defenses began to crumble. The German High Command, realizing that the situation was hopeless, ordered their troops to fall back to the city center. However, it was too late, and the Soviet Army soon breached the city's outer defenses. On April 20th, 1945, Soviet forces reached the outskirts of Berlin, and the battle for the city began in earnest. The fighting was intense, with both sides employing every available weapon, from tanks and artillery to small arms and grenades. The streets of Berlin ran red with blood as the two armies clashed in a struggle that would decide the fate of the city. The Soviet Army's advance was relentless, and they soon reached the heart of the city. On April 30th, 1945, Soviet forces raised the red flag over the Reichstag building, marking a symbolic end to the battle. However, fighting continued in some parts of the city until May 2, 1945, when the German garrison finally surrendered. As we stand amidst the ruins of Berlin, we are reminded of the devastating cost of war. The Battle of Berlin was one of the bloodiest battles in human history, with estimates suggesting that over 1 million soldiers were killed or wounded on both sides. The city itself was left in ruins, with entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble. The fall of Berlin marked a decisive turning point in the war, and it paved the way for the Allied victory in Europe. As we reflect on the events of this pivotal battle, we are reminded of the bravery and sacrifice of soldiers on both sides, who fought valiantly in a struggle that would shape the course of human history. Join me next as we explore the aftermath of the Battle of Berlin and examine the far-reaching consequences of this epic struggle. Dear listeners, welcome back to History with Herodotus, where we left off with the fall of Berlin and the end of World War II in Europe. As we explore the aftermath of this pivotal battle, we find ourselves in a world forever changed by the devastation of war. The Battle of Berlin had a profound impact on the city and its inhabitants. The once thriving metropolis was now a smoldering ruin, with entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble. The estimated death toll from the battle was staggering, with over 100,000 German civilians killed, and many more injured or displaced. The Soviet Army's victory came at a great cost as well, with estimates suggesting that over 300,000 Soviet soldiers were killed or wounded during the battle. As the dust settled, the Allied powers began to grapple with the daunting task of rebuilding an occupied Germany. The Potsdam Agreement, signed on August 2, 1945, marked the beginning of a new era in international relations. The agreement established the Allied Control Council, which would oversee the occupation and reconstruction of Germany. The council was composed of representatives from the United States, Great Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. However, the unity that had characterized the Allied effort during the war began to fray as the occupying powers pursued their own agendas. The Soviet Union, in particular, sought to expand its influence in Eastern Europe, and the seeds of the Cold War were sown. The division of Germany into East and West, with the Soviet Union controlling the eastern sector, marked the beginning of a decades-long standoff between the superpowers. In the years that followed, Berlin became a focal point of the Cold War, with the city's western sectors becoming an island of democracy in a sea of communist-controlled Eastern Europe. The Berlin blockade, which began in 1948 and lasted for over a year, was a stark reminder of the tensions between the superpowers. The blockade, imposed by the Soviet Union in an attempt to strangle the western sectors of the city, was ultimately thwarted by the Allies' massive airlift, which supplied the city with food, fuel, and other essential goods. As we reflect on the aftermath of the Battle of Berlin, we are reminded that the consequences of war can be far-reaching and profound. The battle marked a turning point in world history, shaping the course of international relations for decades to come. The bravery and sacrifice of soldiers on both sides will never be forgotten, and their legacy continues to inspire us today. In conclusion, the fall of Berlin was a pivotal moment in modern history, marking the end of World War II in Europe and the beginning of a new era of international relations. As we navigate the complex web of events that shaped the modern world, we are reminded of the enduring power of human courage, resilience, and determination. Join me next as we explore the post-war world, where the ashes of war gave rise to a new era of global politics, and the superpowers vied for influence in a rapidly changing world. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.